know I'm about a decade or so late to the party on this one, but I started playing Skyrim for the first time late last year. I'm sure this is a controversial take, but the gameplay has not grabbed me as much as I anticipated. I like it in small chunks, but I haven't had the urge to binge, at least like I did with other open world games like Breath of the Wild. What did grab me, though, is the menu music, also known as the Dragonborn theme. I haven't completed the main questline because, distractions, but I did get as far as meeting the old dudes in the mountains to figure out the voice power, so I have a reasonable grasp on the powers and role of the Dragonborn. This handy-dandy definition from the Skyrim wiki helps fill in the rest. By Nord tradition, a Dragonborn represents what a Nord should strive to be. The Nords believe Dragonborn represents the end of all Skyrim's foes. Nord tales likewise tell of Dragonborn of old, who were great and powerful dragon slayers. And the lyrics for the Dragonborn song also explain how the Dragonborn is really the hero of Skyrim, the one who will save it from its foes. And the music written by Jeremy Soule delivers. Through subtle build, use of heroic tropes, and text painting, the Dragonborn theme really enhances what the game sets up as the hero of Skyrim. Let's dive deeper into that music. The music is epic, and I mean epic by the dictionary definition of the word, not in the way it was thrown around the time this game came out. What makes music sound epic? Well, a big orchestra is a good place to start if you have that resource available to you, and Bethesda certainly did. Also giving the brass instruments in the orchestra something to really sink their teeth into, and making sure there's some kind of driving beat in the background. Adding a choir also helps. All of these elements are here in the Dragonborn music. The use of male choir in particular brings out images of big, beefy Vikings, a la How to Train Your Dragon, which also utilizes male choir at points. Skyrim is supposed to be like Scandinavia, after all. The music is characterized by mostly stepwise motion, repeating rhythmic figures, both in the melody and accompaniment, and a clear structure. Let's go through each part of the music. This song has a great mastery of building to a climax. Sometimes it's annoying how slow it builds when I want to listen to the climax of the piece in the menu before loading my game. Anyways, the piece starts with just a pitchless bass drum beating out this rhythmic syncopated ostinato. Since it's just an unpitched drum here, there's no indication of key center yet. However, very soon after the piece starts, the male choir and low strings enter, with new ostinatos that fill in the blank space of the bass drum line. The strings establish the 6 small beats of 6/8 time, with an added couple of 16th notes on the last triplet of every second measure, whereas the wordless choir emphasizes the 2 big beats of a 6/8 measure. The string line emphasizes the note B, which gives the ear a pitch to latch onto, although at this point it's unclear what kind of B center we are in. Underneath these ostinatos is a pitch progression of B, G, A, E. It's hard to hear here at the beginning, but it does come back later and is a lot more obvious there. Here, the lowest of the strings add the bass pitches of what the higher strings are laying down to create a funky chord progression. B minor to G major to A major to some ambiguous version of E. The presence of F sharps and C sharps with the emphasis on the note B places the piece more snugly in B minor, really a B natural minor, or B Aeolian if you will, since there's no other accidentals. Even if the harmonies are non-functional from a traditional music theory standpoint, that is something for the ear to latch onto. This introduction almost feels like holding your breath. Not sure what's going to happen next because the music could go almost anywhere at this point. After a few measures of these ostinatos, the strings have a variation on their final triplet. Then the horns enter, with a rising line as the underlying chords change to another seemingly random progression. The established ostinatos continue underneath the horns, and after the horns repeat their line, the piece enters into the first real melody. The introduction is a wonderful depiction of build. The way it starts from a single pitchless bass drum moving into a mostly pitchless choir with repetition in the pitch strings keeps your ears on their toes in a sense, unsure where things are going to land. All the while, instruments are being added and the whole ensemble is working into a crescendo. If you look at the lyrics, the first Dovahkiin melody is labeled chorus. It does come back later, so I'll go ahead and call it that. The melody leans into the 6/8 time of the piece with a lilting rhythm starting with a 2/16 note pickup that lands on the big beat. That da-da-dun, 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 dun-dun-dun. This basic rhythm lays the foundation for the chorus through several repetitions. Time for some music theory terminology. The structure of the melody is essentially a contrasting period, that is, a form where each phrase begins differently, although similar, but proceeds the same. See how both parts open with the same rhythm, but different pitches. The first phrase starts with a repetition of D-C-D and the second B-C-D, and then both phrases differ even more from there. By thinking through the phrase this way, we can appreciate the similarities and differences of the two phrases here. The parallel motion supports the lyrics too, while adding some variation. The lyrics of the chorus are about the hope of the Dragonborn and a prayer for them to come to rescue Skyrim. As I mentioned at the beginning, the Dragonborn is the hero of Skyrim, and to illustrate that musically, the introduction in this section both use some heroic tropes. Most notably, the use of brass instruments with horns in the introduction and trumpets doubling the vocal melody in the chorus. Brass instruments are historically military and hunting instruments, and the heroic ideas associated with those pastimes have carried over into ideas of heroism in dramatic music for centuries. Think of the main themes for Star Wars, Superman, or The Legend of Zelda in most instances. Really, any heroic theme you've ever heard in media normally uses brass instruments. After the chorus, the music moves through a very brassy instrumental interlude. Trumpets and horns move opposite each other, sort of fighting each other, maybe. The trumpets play a descending ostinato that keeps the 6/8 feel going. Meanwhile, the horns enter with a new melody that moves upwards and feels more like it's in 3/4 time, contrasting the trumpet line in two ways. Whether this is supposed to musically illustrate the final battle of the Dragonborn for Skyrim, or simply intended to create a contrasting interlude, it effectively keeps the rhythmic and dramatic intensity of the piece going while building up to the next verse of the piece. I would like to note that this horn melody comes back later in the choir, and the lyrics there are about the final defeat of the dragon and freedom for Skyrim. It translates to, "But a day shall arise when the dark dragon's lies will be silenced forever, and then fair Skyrim will be free from foul Aldun's maw, Dragonborn be the savior of men." So I don't think it's too far-fetched to think of a musical battle here in the way of a final boss battle. After the introduction of the secondary melody, there is a sort of vocal interlude that gives a call to listen to the tale of the Dragonborn. This isn't much of a melody, but I'll call it one for sake of simplicity. The other two melodies so far have started with pickup notes. This one lands squarely on beat 1. To me, this emphasizes the call to listen. The contrast to the other melodies and emphasis on the strong beat brings the listener back to the lyrics if their mind has started to wander at this point. While the chorus sings here, the trumpets play some fanfare-like licks in the accompaniment, and as the choir holds the last two notes of the verse, we get the most blatant heroic trope of all, a horn call. This is a perfect fifth motion that would be used by a hunting horn as a signaling mechanism. Hunting horns did not have valves and thus were restricted to the notes of the naturally occurring harmonic series, which includes the perfect fifth. A perfect fifth is not the only horn call to ever exist, but the perfect fifth interval, especially in horns or other brass instruments, is often used as a heroic call of sorts. Think again, the main theme of Star Wars, for instance. Composer Jeremy Soule really leans into that association here with a very loud, dramatic perfect fifth in the horns. It could be thought of as a call to battle here as well, with the overall context of the lyrics and the piece in general. Or perhaps the music is signaling the arrival of the Dragonborn. After the dramatic horn call, the music pulls back quite a bit in a contrasting section, featuring higher timbres and less rhythmic intensity. A high-pitched voice soars wordlessly over the male choir, and the brass instruments are entirely gone. Beneath this soaring melody is a chant-like line in the choir that gives the story of the Dragonborn that the previous section told us to listen to. Even though the melody feels lost in the rest of the music around it, the chant-like nature of the melody emphasizes the words, bringing out each one. Of course, since this is a made-up dragon language and not English, that is lost on most listeners. But imagine if you could understand dragon, how the setting of the text would help you understand each word. This is especially necessary because the choir is really buried in the texture here. After this beautiful contrasting section is another instrumental interlude, much like the very opening of the piece, without the initial build and without the choir. That ostinato that was really hard to hear in the introduction, the BGAF, is much more prominent here. There's also a little more rhythmic intensity than in the opening ostinato, and still a lot of emphasis on the note B. More instruments are present as well, giving the section a much fuller sound than the beginning. I think I might even hear bagpipes. Am I crazy? Honestly, it depends on what speakers or headphones I'm using when I'm listening to this as to what it sounds like. It's probably just trumpets blending with everything else to sound bagpipey. But the point being, there is a fuller texture, no matter what the instruments might be. Remember the melody from that first instrumental interlude? Well, it's back, with lyrics this time, and a lot bigger orchestra. The choir sings through the same melody, but there are fuller harmonies and even several major chords, giving a brighter feel to the section. In fact, this section leans towards an E major tonal section, or possibly E mixolydian, since there is no D sharp to be found, giving a brighter, hopeful sound. The presence of G sharps makes it seem like we have left the B minor key center. The presence of E major chords and the 3 sharps make it feel more like E Mixolydian. Regardless of the key center, there is a major lift here, and when we get to the end of the piece, it ends on an E major chord, which is another reason I think this section may be hinting at that final tonality. The harmonies fit beautifully with the lyrics here, which are incredibly hopeful, speaking of the day when the Dragonborn will slay the dragon and set all of Skyrim free. When the piece reaches the lyric, I'm not even going to try to pronounce the dragon. In English, it's "Fair Skyrim will be free from foul Elduin's maw." That is where the music hits the male choir's highest note so far, extending the melody and drawing attention to the vocal line with a polyrhythm. The orchestra continues the 6/8 feel of the accompaniment, while the choir and brass have 2 measures that fit into 3/4 time, creating a lovely syncopation against the rest of the orchestra and really bringing out that lyrical moment. The chorus is essentially the same as earlier, just with a thicker texture, part of that build-up I was talking about at the beginning of the video. The violins with a few extra notes double the choir melody. There might be bagpipes here too, or it's just my wishful thinking. One iteration of the chorus takes us directly into that horn call once again for one final heroic punch before a beautifully calming ending. Like the previous instance of the chorus, the harmonies are also soundly back in B natural minor or Aeolian. That hopeful lift from the E major chords in the previous section is gone. The lyrics fit that idea well, though, as they repeat the previous prayer for the Dragonborn to appear. The ending is the main reason I think that middle section may have hinted at E major as a key center. This piece ends on an E major chord, and it sounds complete, despite an emphasis on B throughout most of the piece. E major is the 4 chord of B minor, which means if the piece was really still in B minor, that E major chord would sound jarring and not complete. For instance, here is a functional chord progression in B minor ending on E major. Sounds goofy, no? However, maybe this whole time B minor was really building up to a resolution of E major, since B is 5 of E. For instance, here's what a B minor going to E would sound like in a functional E major progression. It would be stronger if it was a B major chord, but still much more resolved than the B to E in the key of B. The desperate plea for the Dragonborn amidst uncertainty of a natural minor key ending with finality on E major feels like an overview of the game and the lyrics about the Dragonborn saving Skyrim. It is like the piece ends with the final resolution of the Dragonborn fulfilling their purpose, also known as you, the player, beating the game. That is if you ever actually do the main quest line, or if you just spend your whole time digging around. In conclusion, the Dragonborn music is awesome. No, but seriously, it takes you on a musical journey, much like the journey you'll face in the game. The lyrics help to establish the story, and the music supports the aspect of the story that you, the player, will have to fulfill. Skyrim is in peril, and your character is the one to save it. Whether you choose to fulfill that purpose or just explore for hours on end, the music is waiting for you on the menu screen to remind you the point of it all. I hope you enjoyed this walkthrough of the Dragonborn theme from Skyrim. If you liked this video, please give it a like and subscribe to be notified about sporadic future uploads. This is the only video I have about Skyrim, but I have others about other video games that might interest you in the playlist here. Thank you all so much for being here and for watching to the end.